Israel should move towards a ceasefire with Hamas in the war involving Israel and Gaza. That's according to Labor's Penny Wong. She was backed today by Anne Ali. So what's the response from the coalition? Joining me live is Deputy Nationals Leader Perin Davey. Thanks for your time. This does echo some of the sentiment around the world, in particular from the French president. What did you make of Labor's perhaps repositioning on this?
Well, I mean, it was very interesting to see. It sort of goes against what we voted on in the Parliament on the 16th of October, which was condemning Hamas and voting for the right of Israel to defend itself. It's almost like Labor's walking back from that, which is very interesting to see. I mean, we do not condone the loss of innocent civilian lives at all, working towards a ceasefire, but a ceasefire must be two ways. This cannot be just calling on Israel to down arms and down tools while Hamas is still operating their terrorist actions. So we need to see both sides down arms, allow aid and assistance to get through to the civilians, and to try and have discussions. But it's got to be a two-way street. There is no point one side doing it without the other.
But on that, I mean, that's what Penny Wong said as well. So it sounds like you actually, agree with her that if it's a two-way ceasefire...
Well, Penny Wong also discussed steps towards. But what are steps towards? I mean, who is she proposing be the first mover in this instance, and what are her steps? I mean, the other thing about the commentary from Penny Wong on the weekend is she's calling out Islamophobia in Australia, but she not once mentioned anti-Semitism. We need to actually start to see some balance from the government. We need to ensure all racism, bigotry and hate is condemned regardless of which side it's on.
But you actually think the outcome of a ceasefire would be a good one and one that Israel should pursue in some way?
I personally would like to see aid getting through to where it's needed, but what I don't want to see is aid getting across the border and then getting diverted by Hamas. And that is the reports that we're hearing, and I totally understand why people are avoiding taking steps to get aid in if Hamas are just diverting it to their purposes, and that is irresponsible.
Right, but I mean, Israel in response to this has said no, because they think it would give Hamas time to gear up. So even if both sides are actually obeying the ceasefire, that Israel says, well, that's not acceptable to us because that will be Hamas re-gearing up, if you like.
Well, and according to the claims, what we've seen to date is the fact that, Israel have said we did take fuel to the hospital so they could fuel their generators. The fuel didn't get to the hospital. Hamas diverted it for their own purposes. So you do understand why Israel are very reluctant to try to assist people again if that's what's happening.
But let's just circle back then. So you initially said as long as both sides
that's why it has to be a two-way street, and it has to be there. Hamas downs their tools, downs their arms.
But what do you mean down tools? I mean, if they're not carrying out any attacks, they can still be preparing for the next one.
Well, they've got to agree not to, and this is
how
both
on earth
sides.
do you police that, though? Because it's easy to see if attacks are being carried out or not, because bombs aren't being fired. But as to not preparing for one, you're just trusting Hamas?
Well, you've actually got to be able to follow the aid and the assistance to watch it and to make sure it gets to where it's going. So it gets to the hospitals, it gets put in the generators, and the generators fire up again. You don't want to send it over the border in trucks and then not see where the trucks end up.
Is that sort of practical to ever know that's happening other than just trusting Hamas? I mean, how do you know all the aid's getting delivered?
Let's ask all of the aid agencies out there who do this all the time, how they police and make sure that their aid gets through. Let's actually see some responsibility from all parties.
So you would want Hamas to obey the ceasefire and also not misdirect any of the aid, particularly the stuff that could be used for military capability, and then you think a ceasefire would be a good outcome?
I would like to see aid get through. How that is done will be a matter for the parties on the ground, but I do agree any ceasefire has to be a two-way street.
Okay. Childcare in the regions, another spotlight on this. Sort of sometimes you check the date on the front of the paper to make sure it's this year's and not last year's or the year before. Probably not used to you. Is it sort of a pox on both the houses? I mean, neither government has been able to fix this issue so far.
It is an endemic issue, and it is something that we Nats have been talking about for a long time. But the Albanese government came in promising cheaper childcare, and we flagged it from the get-go that cheaper childcare means nothing if you can't access childcare. We read stories about people driving 140 k's to access childcare. I know of nurses who can't get back into nursing because they can't drop their kids off at childcare. We really need to have a forensic look and look at where the childcare deserts are and how do we fix it. And maybe fixing it is dropping some of the red tape that governments have imposed on things like family daycare centres and other daycare centres.
What, so getting away from thinking of the big system, a bit more of a decentralised?
Maybe a decentralised system, and looking at staffing and the requirements we have on staffing, that every childcare centre staffer, whether they're supervised or not, still has to have a Cert 3
qualification.
Yeah, qualification.
Then people go, hang on, didn't we make this an important element, and it's an education thing as well?
It has, but if you've got people in the centre, if you've got enough qualified staff, maybe some of the others could be on-the-job trainees, and that way we get more through.
Okay.
And some centres do on-the-job training. Other centres say, no, you've got to have a Cert 3 straight away.
Perin Davey, thanks for your time.
Thank you.